Good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name is LackAttack, and this is Sequence Break, a podcast featuring speedrunners, taskers, developers, retro enthusiasts, and everything in between. Welcome to another bonus episode. I appreciate, thank you so much for your patience. I mentioned a few months back, but the month of May has been a very busy time for me, and I'm glad to say that a lot of the things that have kept me busy, grad school, and working and all that kind of stuff, have thankfully died down a bit. I just finished my grad school program, and also being the day job, being a teacher, just wrapped up the entire year. So I'm hoping with a little bit of luck, keeping the fingers crossed, that I have more time to dedicate to the podcast and get this thing going back with a little bit more regular episodes. As you all are probably aware, if you're into speedrunning and all that kind of stuff, we have a bunch of marathons, and the weekend that I'm recording this right now, Power Up with Pride just finished, many other marathons, and so I'm having to dedicate some time to that as well. But the nice thing is, I think I am ready to finally dedicate a lot more time to the podcast again. So thank you so much for your patience as I work through some, real life day things that take me away from, unfortunately, doing this podcast, which I love doing. This is a bonus episode, and this is a conversation that just happened on the GDQ channel as part of Games Done Classic, which is a podcast I host for the Games Done Quick channel. And what a conversation this was. The episode was all about Zelda 1 and 2 speedruns and kind of the history of them, and also the performances that have happened on the GDQ stage around these speedruns. And I'm going to share with you just a clip from the episode. I highly recommend you check out the entire episode. This one's a little bit shorter. It's only about 2.5 hours for the entire episode, so it's a little bit, I say quicker, it's still 2 hours long. But this clip that I'm going to share with you is mostly about Z1, and this features Breakdown, who was the first ever runner of Zelda 1 and 2 on the GDQ stage at the original Classic Games Done Quick back in 2010. And then also features Darkwing Duck and LackAttack. And if you were around speedrunning at all in like the early and mid 2000s, there was the most fun, great rivalry competition that these two had, trading the world record back and forth. And they both talk quite candidly about what that experience was like, and then meeting on that GDQ stage. And it was LackAttack's first appearance at a GDQ. If you're at all interested, there is an episode. In fact, LackAttack's been on the podcast a couple times. I am a big fan of his speedrunning and his approach and how he does all those things. And I've been very familiar with the Darkwing Duck's speedruns, because that was really when I started getting to speedrun, was when he and Lack were trading world records back and forth, and just really grinding down the category to the game, I should say, many different categories to where it is today. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you get a chance to enjoy. And if you're at all interested, check out the full episode. I promise you won't be disappointed. Here we go. Enjoy. If you were at all around speedrunning in the early and mid 2010s, you are very familiar then with both of these runners who are still doing speedruns of games today and still very active. Please welcome Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck, how you doing? Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I don't know if very active is the right term, but still active, sure.
And you maybe have one of the best avatars I've seen on this show so far. So thank you very much.
That's the power of good GDQ photogrophers. Yeah, there is a story behind that picture, by the way. I
share,
saw,
yeah.
Well, that they were. I'm not the most photogenic of people, and I saw when I was actually doing the run, I saw the cameraman come up, and Richard. I've talked to him about, and he was going to take a picture. I'm like, I can't give him a normal look, right? I got to come up with something, and this is actually, I think this was. Which one was this? Goonies 2, which I'm actually doing right now. Might have been Goonies 2. It's either that or Rygar. Might have been Rygar. I can't remember anymore. But so I gave that look, and that ended up being a look that can be used for any emotion known to man.
It's very true. It's got so much usefulness to it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. And obviously, the person, I think right above you or right below you here, right above you on the screen, the one, the only LackAttack. Lack, thanks so much for joining us and being here and talking a little Zelda 1.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the video, but we're going to mostly use that as just kind of this background to kind of set the stage. Darkwing Duck, I'm going to first start with you. When did you first start running Z1, and what kind of got you into the game?
August 2011 is when I first picked it up. And why? Because after the success of the first SGDQ, which was SGDQ of 2011, I had this wild idea of scrounging together whatever money I had and head over to AGDQ, because it would be their third time doing it. And by the time I made that thought, the schedule had already been released, and they're not going to add anything. So the only way I was going to actually play something was to race something. And I looked over the list, and the only thing that seemed like something I could learn, and as part of my profile, I don't at that time and still now really I only speedrun games that I played as a kid. And it's like, okay, might as well pick that one up and try to learn it. And since the speedrun route was always starting with level 3, and the safe route, marathon route, started with level 2, I might as well go ahead and learn level 3 and learn how to do it for a marathon. So that was the origins of me learning Zelda.
Seems so simple. Lack, how about you? When did you start running the game, and what made you pick it up?
Well, I started running the game in May of 2013. So I saw AGDQ 2013. It was my first taste of speedrunning. I just found it randomly, or found speedruns randomly on YouTube. I was looking for something else, and I started watching it and was just blown away by by what I was seeing. All kinds of different games of Zelda and Mario and just other different games too. And then I actually came across the race of Zelda 1 between Breakdown and Jay Prophet, and said that, I was like, man, I used to play that game all the time. I was pretty good at it, in my own head, and decided to start speedrunning it. So that run was really the thing that actually got me into it. And I didn't even know that there was a huge community for it. I just decided to play it. And that's pretty much how I got started. So
the run we're looking at right now is AGDQ 2015. Leading up to this point, like you mentioned, the community, and I'll throw this over to either Darkwing Duck, Breakdown, or Lack. Because the runs we're looking at right now are completely different than what Breakdown was doing in 2010. What happened, or who were developing strats in the community that found all these screen scrolling? We found so many wonderful new things. How did those come about? Who were the people out there doing this kind of stuff?
I'll start off. Darkwing was really the person who did everything for this game. He was really the main runner of this for a very long time. I think there were single-digit runners on the leaderboard on ZeldaSpeedruns.com for when I started. And so he had, a bunch of videos. He had a tutorial. I actually don't know when that tutorial came out. Maybe you can say that, but
I'd have to look at my VODs. I don't remember when.
Yeah, it's pretty old. The streaming quality hasn't improved, but the time has gone by, right?
Yeah. There's still some good strats, and there's still some good things. I guess I've been told this as recently as a few months ago, where that old video still has some good stuff in it. So.
Yeah, and
I think it was 2014, 2015 is when I did it, something like that. That's a really old video.
I used it to learn how to play the game, and we didn't have Discord. We had the SDA forums that Breakdown and Feasel had mentioned earlier, and I used those too to look at strats. Or there was actually one huge Zelda 1 thread on SDA that went for years, I think. And
well, did I start a new one? I don't even remember if I started a new one or just posted the ones that had been there. Posting.
We should start a new one.
I posted I started doing bomb. I started keeping track of bomb drops. So I have no idea of coding and breaking down a game. So all I could do is just force it. trial and error. So I got a nice little percentage of bomb drop rates from the first Octorok. This was before screen scrolling. And so you get an idea of the likelihood of a bomb drop from, an enemy. And, that's just stuff that, because like, if you want to go back into it, like Breakdown gets a ton of credit because he's the only one that really ran the game between 2008 and when I picked it up to, play it, try to, race them at a GDQ because there was a lot of acrimony in the around that time, and like we didn't have very many actual runs of the game, and they were all kind of the three people that were mainly involved in it are kind of all their runs are suspect. So we don't have any sort of good legitimate runs that we could trust. So that was the also benefit of the SDA forums is that share everything. Like I did all this documentation of what I was doing, percentages, what worked, what didn't work, that kind of thing that didn't happen the 4 or 5 years prior when I was trying to do research on the game. But
that's kind of interesting because you also mentioned brute forcing and was a lot of your process is just trial and error, or did you have some ideas going into things? Like how do you find and discover some of that stuff?
Some of the task stuff was there. Like we knew the drop rates of enemies, or not drop rates, but what they dropped, and that they were in different subgroups, and different enemies dropped different things, and we had that. And the tasks had screen scrolling, though they did it in a weird way, and they didn't know why it worked. They just knew how to recreate it. And then I did the dumbest thing in the world in January of 2012 is accidentally screen scroll while doing it was actually a double run because I did that for SGDQ 2012. I did a double quest run and accidentally screen scrolled and had to. I got really upset that I had to figure out how to do it, and I didn't know how to, but I knew it was possible on console, and because I had just done it. And so spent a good couple months learning how to do that. And then, that kind of is a very strong staple of the game nowadays is doing that trick.
It's almost second nature to the runs. I mean, it's one of those things, but we hadn't seen that until, until you did it. So
Yeah,
I remember those early screen scroll streams of yours, like figuring it out, and like once you actually did have a pretty good grip on it, like the different things you could do, and so that was a fun time in Zelda 1 speedrunning, certainly.
Oh yeah, well,
I like that.
Yes and no for me because it's like I never really liked it's not quite out of bounds stuff, but I never really liked it. But it's like I didn't have a choice because it's like it's doable, so you got to do it. It doesn't.
I remember asking you. I actually remember asking you in your stream one time. It's like if you thought screen scrolling should be a separate category, and just the adamant no that came out of your mouth.
Oh,
when
really?
I typed that in the chat. I remember that all too well.
I don't remember that. That's interesting. Because I just think like you're not going out of bounds. It's just not. I didn't think it was worthy of a different category. It's its own.
I mean, it changed the game. It was a game changer. It definitely was.
Well, and when Andrew G was on the show, he mentioned, for better or for worse, at some point, Twin Galaxies is one of the leaderboards back at the time. And so they, very much no quote unquote glitches and things like that. And that you can see how that influenced speedruns of these early 2010s.
Yeah. But again, they were a lot of the users in the Zelda community, they were kind of going back and forth between SDA forums and Twin Galaxies, but they were very secretive on the strats. And that was at the time a very guarded thing in Twin Galaxies is guarding your strats, and that made it very difficult to research and how to learn how to do a run. So it's just like do what you can, and but now we got to a point where SDA required a video, so it's not like you could hide your strats at that point.
Right.
So you got to do it.
Breakdown, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I am curious, seeing what you did in 2010 and then seeing where Darkwing Duck and Lack are going to take the speed run. Any thoughts on seeing the game be just broken into pieces over the next few years?
I mean, I watched it happen in real time. And I mean, if you watch the my earlier AGDQ runs, like the CGDQ run, ultra safe. The AGDQ 2011 run, still very safe, but less safe. The race in 2012, fairly close to the actual like current state of the game. We made a couple allowances for marathon safety, but we did level 3 first. We did the 3-4-1 route. Screen scrolling wasn't a thing yet at that point, but it's a case of the game was moving forward, and then basically these two, they both cited me, which warms my soul a little bit, but they both took that ball and they ran with it. They definitely did. This game went places. It's a much more interesting run than it used to be back in the day. Lots of amazing strats.
I mean, like I said, there was no one that ran the game between 2008 and when I picked it up in 2011. That's because you had done it in class, in the CGDQ. You did all three, right? Because you just mentioned it. I couldn't remember if you did it in 2011. I know you did it in 2012, but yeah, it's just like if there hadn't been that was a nice bridge from that old style of speedrunning into the new style we kind of do now. So I don't know if it would have been to that point. So there's no reason not to think of it that way, that you weren't a bridge.
So there is quite a history of the world record going back and forth from basically in those early 2010s all the way up to what we're seeing right now, a 2015 race and beyond. I guess maybe I'll throw this at the Lack first then. Is it something when you were grinding the game and trying to get better, is it an active competition for you? Are you watching what Darkwing Duck's doing and trying to say, I can do that better? Is it something you're self-motivated to do? The time period as a viewer, this is kind of when I really got heavy into watching speedruns, and it was just so enjoyable to see. It seemed like sometimes on a monthly basis, the world record going back and forth between you and Darkwing Duck. So I'm curious from your perspective, what was the drive to get better at the game?
Well, the time that you mentioned, that like early 2015, was it 2016? I think it was 2016.
I think it's 2015.
16.
I thought.
Was it?
Is it 15?
I think it was 15.
For this run?
It was 20. You're right. It was 2015. Yeah. It was 2015. At that point, it was a competition thing, because I knew I could be better than Darkwing at anything that I tried to do, No, but we really wanted to push the time below 30 minutes, or at least I did. And we were kind of just going back and forth. Like the first time I had set a record in Zelda 1 was in the summer of 2014. And then, this race was pretty hyped up because I hadn't met anybody yet. I had never been to an event before. And so, we were, or at least I was like, a little nervous because I'd never been to any of these events. I'd never seen anyone in person. Darkwing was kind of a staple of these events. Like he had been there at least a couple years. And so, when I showed up, like I really wasn't sure what to expect. Like, am I going to, are we going to like be friends, or are we going to be enemies? What's going to happen here? So, it's kind of funny how far we've come in that regard. But like but yeah, like just having that competition early, like it was so intense too, like all the time. Like he's in Mountain Time and I'm in Eastern Time Zone. So that was a huge thing. Like every night I would go to bed. And like in the morning, the first thing I would do would be check his VOD to see if he had beaten my time or his time. And it's just amazing, like the level of competition that we had. And I know that maybe I'll let him answer for himself, but I was like all in. Like that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to get better at that game so that I could end up with all the glory.
Yeah.
Right, but,
I didn't want to lose because I had done that before.
Yeah.
And just for let everybody know, at the time of this race, I did have the record, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That I had taken it back. But yeah, I had a big, and I don't know if Fiesel's still muted or whatnot, but he's on break. But I had a pretty big competition with Fiesel on Rygar, so I had done this before. So it's just like I didn't want to lose, and I came out ahead in the Rygar battle, which we traded like, I think we both like five times each. I think we traded. Like when we both finished it down, I had like a 3 or 4 second lead, I think, something like that. So it was that was super fun. Like we'd be streaming it at the same time too. That would be the other thing we'd be doing. But that was. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I have some people in my chat give you like some sort of trash talk little thing that I had going. I don't know, but yeah, that was something like but something like that. But that was great. That was so Lack. See, here's the thing with Lack, and this is. I don't know if I had quite this. I didn't like losing it, and it's kind of not been great that I did lose it, but. Like at this time we were around 32, I think 32 or 31s at this point. I don't remember, but there had been more people starting to run the game, but no one had really gotten close to my time. And then, but watching Lack when he was getting 35s, like good 3 minutes or so, I was like, he was the one I was worried about. Definitely the one I was worried about that would beat my time because a lot of his rooms were just cleaner. He just didn't have the experience on it, and I happened to be right, but that sucks. But it worked out. I'm 1 for 1 in those things. But it's all good. We're I've learned to live with my failures, and Lack seemingly right in that he wanted to be better than me at everything, and he went out and did it.
Yeah.
Lack, I didn't find your speedrunning in your stream until you started running this game. Had you done any speedrunning before this? Because I got to say, all of this progress that happened in the game between you and Darkwing Duck all seemed to happen like in a firestorm that it kept going. So I'm curious, had you done any speedrunning before this, leading up to it?
Yeah, I had the first game I ever ran was Super Adventure Island 2 for the Super Nintendo. When I went to Speed Demo's archive, I looked for runs in games that I just like playing, and that one didn't have a run. So I said, oh man, and I couldn't find like a completed run. I said, wow, there's a free world record out there. I'm going to just go try to set it myself. So I just did a complete run. And then I realized later that you had to have all these crazy recordings of stuff to submit anything to STA. Right. So I was like, well, I guess that run doesn't count, or I don't know. So I did that just a little bit, and I kind of messed actually with some Wind Waker tech, but I never really ran the game. I just kind of like learned how to do super swimming and some other stuff. So Zelda 1 was really early in my speedrunning career, and I've stuck with it since. Like I've taken some breaks, but really has been kind of the main game that I've played ever since I started.
Wait. Your first run wasn't Big Nose the Caveman?
No, that was much later.
Okay.
So, Darkwing Duck, you mentioned the 35 at the time. What did you all think could be the possible best time around this time period, especially for like this race? Like, what did you think the Z1 was capable of at this time?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I imagine Lack would have better aspirations than I did, I think, because I'd been running it for a lot longer. But I don't know if we had a goal. We had the old TG time that was done with up A. Beating that without up A was like one of the first major goals, and that was 31:36. And that definitely was beat.
You had done that.
Yeah,
you had done
I think
that before I'd even come around. So.
Oh, is that what? Okay, so it wasn't 32s then that we were. I don't like the times started to get jumbled together because you have at the time there wasn't really any no up A runs at the time. There was on SDA the second quest run was no up A and the first quest run was no up A. It was up A, sorry, and then that got replaced as mentioned earlier by Vadava's time, which was what was his time?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it was in the 33s because I ended up submitting a 34. I think back in was it 2011, 2012, early 2012. I think is when I submitted no, I think it was 2011 where I submitted a 34. I think no up A, and then came back to it. Started. I know 3201 was a big time that I got. And then beating the Rodrigo time was the big thing. And then I kind of I had no real main aspirations after that. I know you definitely wanted to go south of 30 and much more than I was interested in it. I just was interested in being first, not in a time.
Yeah, I think that kind of came around later. Like, I didn't really have a goal time until we got kind of close to 30 minutes. Like, I think we saw the potential of the run. It's like, well, as we kept getting better, and like, you know, we definitely drove each other to get better at the game, I think, is like, you know, we would kind of like steal strats from each other. We'd share some of it a little bit, but we would definitely kind of spur each other to be better at the game. And so like we're finding, I remember when you clipped into the Patra 2 diamond, like for the first time in a run. And that like blew my mind. Like, oh man, we didn't even think about that. And that was, I think, to get under 31 minutes, if I remember correctly. So, you know, as far as like a final time to push for, like, I don't know if we ever, like, even after we got under 30 minutes, like I got 29:56 and I was like, that's it, calling it. You know, I don't know. It can go lower. Like somebody else can do it, yada, yada.
That's like 25th place now.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's pretty slow now. But like, you know, after I played it a little bit more, we started seeing like more potential time saves. And so that's when I was like, man, I wonder actually like how low this could go. And so that's kind of when I really pushed it down, kind of like Darkwing had done for years. Like I just took it the next step, and was able to push it under 29 minutes. And now it's under 28 minutes, which is even crazier. Like that it's even gotten that far. Like if you had told us, you know, back when we did this race, it's like, you know, these races are actually kind of embarrassing times for us now, but the run would eventually be like, well, okay, you have a 31:02 or 31:08 or whatever. Just wait, it's going to be over 3 minutes faster within, you know, I guess 6 years or 5 years.
Something like that.
I don't think we would have seen that. We knew the TAS was there. And TAS was 22:18, I believe, at this time. It had been around for a while. So we, you know, we knew that was there, but we're like, they do crazy stuff. We're never going to get that low. So we always knew there was some potential, but really didn't know what was going to happen, like RTA style.
It is definitely a bit mind-blowing, especially to watch it nowadays. The folks in the chat are noticing, if you haven't seen this one before, this is GDQ 2015, and there are lead changes. This race has a little bit of everything. There's unexpected deaths. I mean, there's some...
Yeah, this was a great race.
Oh, it doesn't have unexpected deaths, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I've already gotten my death out of the... I got my death out of the way early.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
So.
You died the wrong spot.
Yeah,
I do want to ask...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Darkwing Duck.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I think I know where you're going, which is where it's going. Yeah.
Well, I'll get to that in just a second. I do want to, you know, Lack, you mentioned this is your first time on the stage. And for those that aren't too familiar with history, Darkwing Duck had already performed this a few times, I think, at this point. You already had 3 or 4 runs, I think, in previous GDQs leading up to this. My question will be first to Lack. How do you prepare for something like this? What are the nerves like? You know, I mean, you mentioned a little bit of it, but could you tell us a little bit how you prepared for something like this, especially being how competitive the rivalry was?
Oh man, I was a wreck right before this. So we were supposed to go before Zelda 2 in this marathon, and then they switched it for some reason, like one of the runners couldn't be there or something.
One of the runners was, I believe, European and had flight issues, I believe. Got late.
Yeah. And so our run got pushed back like an hour. And so I was already I was ready to go mentally. And then, you know, we had to sit in the back. So if you watch the Zelda 2 run at this marathon, I'm in the back and I actually had my controller with me. And I was just like pushing buttons on the controller to like, I don't know, just get some nerves out or something. So I was really nervous. Like I had played a lot to practice for this. But I'd never played games in front of people who were also really good at games. Like I was best on the block growing up. A lot of people probably were. But when you come to something like this, you know, you're probably not the best at anything really, or maybe one game. So, and someone like Darkwing who, you know, had a ton of respect for, especially in these events and stuff like that. And like, it was just a lot of pressure too, because there was a lot of people that were really rooting for this race to happen. And when it got in, like, it was a huge deal. So, you know, there was a lot of like community pressure of just trying to do the best I could. So yeah, I'm much taller than Darkwing, so as long as I stood next to him, I felt pretty good. But when we're sitting there, you can see we're kind of even. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I was nervous the entire way through this race.
I do recall playing the heel a lot before the race, because like this was okay. If it's GDQ 15, I think I'd done a dozen GDQ runs to that point. So it wasn't like anything. I think no, and it wasn't my first race either. So it was, and I hadn't lost a race yet, I think, up to that point. So I was pretty confident going into it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, you should have been.
And I had gotten the record back. Everything, I was like, I felt like it was
everything was going your way. But I mean, look, I'm about to die in level 6. So you could see like how nervous I was with movements and stuff. But
there is something I got to mention. It's kind of one of these weird, interesting moments of any live event that you attend. But I had watched your stream for a couple of years before I'd actually met you in person, Lack. And you know, you're over 6 feet tall, and so it's almost surprising because you're right. You're the same height right now as Darkwing Duck is up there on the webcam. So it's always kind of interesting and unique experience to get that in real life.
This middle image here of the camera is like one of my favorite GDQ images, just because of the number of like amazing people and runners that are back there. Like, I mean, that is like an all-star, like Hall of Fame, except that person in the middle in the sunglasses. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is? Like in the back?
Ray might, or Breakdown Alaska, maybe one of you, but
yeah, maybe they've been around longer. They may know. If anyone in the chat can figure out who that is, I would love to know someday.
Let us know. But actually, I want to ask about that. So, Breakdown, you know, you've first of all, you've witnessed quite a few amazing performances on the GDQ stage live and in person. But you know, what was it like being watching this thing happen live?
Oh, it was a treat. It was definitely a treat. Let's see. I'm in that crowd behind the couch. I'm just off camera. I'm sitting next to Ted. But yeah, no, this was a joy to watch. It definitely was. Fantastic race.
It looks on the webcam. It looks so intimate. It looks like there might be like a dozen people there. I don't know how big the room actually was, but it doesn't look like, you know, just because we have is the webcam.
This was the stage setup for this one. It was basically like a third of the room. Yeah, basically like the TV setups didn't like face the whole room. They just faced this like one little area just back behind the stage. And then there was the screens, and like if anybody who's been to a GDQ recently, there's the 2 screens with like, you know, the sea of people. Like that was off to the side there. It wasn't captured on the camera. There was like a crowd cam that would cut to between runs.
I believe on that one, the idea was that people were wanting that more intimate look again from like the 4-H Center and, you know, Essentia and all the SGDQ 2013 hotel, you know, where there wasn't a ton. They wanted that feel. That was I think the idea behind that closeness, which hadn't had in the last couple GDQs. So, but
yeah, this race pretty close right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And because you're both there in person, you know how this is exactly how synced up it was on the stage. Could you see each other's screens as you're playing through?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was just right. I mean, you can see it's just right there. We got the giant CRTs in front of us. So yeah.
Another question for you. One of the things that Zelda 1 is known for is some the drops and the count. And either one, would you mind just telling us a little bit about that and how you're able to keep track of that in a setting like this where you're thousands of people watching on a stream, hundreds of people in the room? How do you keep track of some of that stuff?
Well, for just
it's hard, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely hard. But you have like, you know, if you kill something and it drops a certain thing, you can know where you're at. If you know you kill 2 of the same enemies and they drop 2 things in a certain order, you kind of know where you're at. So you can at least, you know, have an idea and guess, and then do some extra stuff. This is pretty close. Oh, God, I don't want to. Why do I have this up? This brings back bad memories.
Yeah,
and this
you blew the whistle outside.
Yeah, I know. Like, because I see
Yeah.
in one of the outlines, you're asking what it's like to speedrun this game, Lat.
Yes.
And
yes.
the answer to this, to me, is you have about 3 minutes of terror, about 20 some odd minutes of goofing off, and then another 5 minutes of terror. And that terror
Yeah, that's
always
very accurate.
And it's like it's completely, and yeah, ooh, good scrolls me. And I haven't been able to get past that second terror ever in a GDQ run. Just never has happened, which is very.
Well,
There's always next year, man.
Unsettling. Yeah, it's something that it's a cross I have to bear, but you know.
Well, it's totally understandable, Darkwing Duck. And I think that's one of the things that makes this run so memorable for me personally is that there's this human element to all of this. You know, there's the speedrunning, as much as you all make it look so easy up there, there's all these elements, and it's so interesting to hear it from your perspective because we just assume, hey, we've seen your world records. You can do this. This is no problem. This is easy. And it's really not. I mean, especially with all these eyeballs looking at you live and in person.
Well, at this
racing it. Yeah, racing it is so much more intense because you get one chance. Marathon setting as well. So like there's so much riding on that moment. Like if you don't perform at that moment, then you won't do well. So especially with if it was a single rate, or like if you were doing this by yourself, it wouldn't be as bad. You kind of laugh at stuff. But here we really want to win. Like there's so much riding on this personally and like in the community, and I hadn't really proven myself yet, so I was trying to do that. So there was a lot going on here.
Wow, I had to do a very quick one. Sorry, I shouldn't be watching this. I'm just I'm torturing myself watching this.
I love hearing this insight. But like you touched upon it, so we hadn't really talked about it, but were there more runners? Were there more people submitting runs at this point? Were new things outside of you two or outside of Darkwing Duck a lot being discovered? How has the game grown by this point?
Well,
go ahead,
I'm just gonna say, like 6 months later, we had a swordless run, which was like one of the best runs we've seen for Zelda ever, I think. And it wasn't by either of us. Well, that one was Jay Coper. You see, right behind Lack there. So I mean, it was certainly growing at this point. I don't know if this like made an explosion, but oh, guys, this is the screen that happened. Oh, I got through it. Oh, God, I'm so good.
No, it was later. It was later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say that like this kind of started it because, with our like trading of the record and stuff like that, like people started paying attention to Zelda. Another thing that really contributed to Zelda 1 growing was the randomizer that was released, which was right around what was later this year. And so like more and more people started playing Zelda, just, either it was speedrunning or randomizer. And so like the community just started to grow. And so, later that year, I want to say like, Eunice got really involved, and he's somebody that really contributed a lot. And then recently we've had so many more contributors, like, neither of us are the record holders. Like, I think I have 2 left maybe, but like, Shixel, Green Mario, RC Drone have all held the record recently in this category. And they've all contributed stuff too. So like the game really did kind of take off, after this, like maybe not right away, but definitely in the next year or so. It definitely started growing for sure.
Yeah, randomizer. Yeah.
I didn't realize like you only had a half a heart there at the end.
I was about to die. Like it was really bad. Yeah.
Wow.
I was really nervous. Yeah, for sure.
I didn't realize you got bodied. Oh. All right.
I'm glad you pointed out all those other things too. I know it's a really fun race to watch. I'm glad we got a chance to watch it. But I'm glad you mentioned the other parts of it too, because as we talk about like the growth of speedrunning or the growth of Zelda 1, it's not just any one thing. It's this combination of a lot of things just all happening at once. And without a doubt for me, a part of that foundation was this back and forth between you two and seeing it come to a head here live and in person. Because also at this time, I don't remember how many, there weren't a ton of live events, if any others outside of GDQ. So getting a chance to actually seeing you both do this in person. You mentioned it too, Darkwing Duck. You know, a lot of times it's just gameplay that you're watching on stream. With sometimes somebody had their commentary and things like that. And so getting a chance to see the runners sweat in person, there's just something. I know it's terrifying I mean, it sounds terrible for both of you, but for the viewer, it was really quite it was on the edge of your seat the whole time watching this thing. So for that sense. What was it at the end of this? I mean, I assume Lack and Darkwing Duck leading from this. Did the nature of the relationship change? Did you still want to go back and forth beating each other? Like what would happen after this?
Well, after this is when the record swaps happened. The next 2 months was when we really pushed the time down. Like it went down about 40 more seconds in the next 3 months, which was crazy at the time because it really hadn't been going down at all. And then, there was that flurry of records. And so I think we switched 5 times.
Really?
Over the course. Well, I think like combined, we each set 5 new records, I believe. You could check the timeline if you want, but
I don't remember.
I have a better memory of it. I know you like to block it out.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I'm thinking here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean the time just kept going down, and I became motivated to take it as low as I could. So that's what I did.
Darkwing Duck, as we start to wrap this thing up, I guess I'll throw this one to you. Do you ever want to run the game again? Do you ever miss putting yourself through this or anything like that?
Maybe. I'm like I'm well off the record now. It's and I don't know if I have the motivation to do the some of the new stuff that's being done now. So it's that's the best answer I've been giving everybody for. When did I last run this seriously? I got my PB on Beat the Record.
That was cool.
Yeah, which was interesting, but I haven't. And that was 3 years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
And I haven't really run it that seriously since because I burnt myself out on it pretty hard. But I don't know. We'll see. I can't. I'm almost getting to the age where it's hard to do any speed running, but it is what it is. We'll see.
Like I know you've continued to pursue the game after this run, and I don't know. I can't remember when the last time you've run Zelda 1, but do you still see yourself playing anytime in the future?
Oh yeah, I honestly have the same answer as Darkwing. It's like maybe, I want to, but I don't want to at the same time. Like I achieved my goals in the game, which was to get sub 28, and so I did. And I haven't speedrun it since October of last year, so it's been a long time.
Oh wow! Yeah.
For me to be out of the game, which is the longest I've gone without speedrunning the game. People ask for it all the time, but I'm enjoying. There's so many other games. To quote my friend Fast at CC, there's so many great games out there to speedrun, and it's like after this is my 9th year of speedrunning, 2021.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm the young one in the chat here.
Yeah, yes, you are.
So it's, so it's not even that big of a deal. But, I've spent pretty much all of that speedrunning Zelda 1. So it's like, I want to do other stuff and then come back if I want to. Because I've honestly gotten the itch recently. It's like, oh, I could play it sometime. And then I say, no, put that down, put the game back. Stick with what you're doing. But it's been really cool to see other people take the game and run with it. Darkwing was saying I wanted to be number 1, I wanted to be first, and I definitely had that for a long time. And yeah, I still want to be like first, but like setting all these records over the years, like we've both done it so many times, it's like we've contributed so much to the game. There will always be somebody that will be better than you down the road. And you cannot just hold that off forever. Eventually, you'll just your skills will deteriorate, or other stuff will happen. People will get better. Somebody just might flat out be better than you, and they're going to be, ahead of you on the leaderboard. And eventually, you got to come to you have to kind of realize like, hey, that's okay. Like just because somebody else beat my time doesn't make my time any less meaningful. It's just not the current fastest time, but at that point, it was the fastest time. So that's kind of what I've been holding on to. Some other people like Shixel, who I'm going to joke with, he's the current world record holder. He would say that's with sour grapes that I got beat. So,
well, I would agree with that because I had lots of sour grapes. I'll tell you.
Yeah, so I've got some grapes too. So we'll share it now. But it's been a great thing for like. For me, I would never have met all these great people if it wasn't for Zelda 1. So I know that, like, this game has really kind of led me down a path that I probably wouldn't have gone down otherwise. So I'm extremely thankful for it. I'm extremely thankful for Breakdown and Jay Prophet, who I've not met, and Darkwing for getting me into the game and getting, I wouldn't even be here today. So, like, all this cool stuff has happened because of that. So.
Big shout out to Jay Prophet. He was one of the tassers of the game. They released a new task out in like 20, right before your race Breakdown. That was 2012. He had he'd been working on it pretty hard with who's like the main he did so many tasks. I can't remember his name right offhand. They collaborated. And and they came out with a new task right soon before, and like Jay Prophet was like in our streams, and he was acquainted outside of work to Sinister, who was a pretty prolific speedrunner, and so he had a good kind of rapport with the speedrunning community and task community, because that has sometimes in some worlds been a little bit acrimonious, but not always. But he was like really good with, strats and working on things. So a big shout out to him if he's ever around and would ever hear this.
Well, I can. It's easy and honest to say here now in retrospect that the things that you all did during this time period, leading up to this point and then beyond, have inspired. It's just so obvious and easy to see. It's inspired a generation of. Yes, Zelda 1 runners and what you see on the leaderboard currently, but then also speedrunning in general. Zelda 1 was a game that a lot of us grew up with. And so seeing it played in this way and in this fashion at this level was... I've never run Z1, but I don't think I would have tried speedrunning had it not been seeing something like this back at that time. So I can, first of all, just thank all of you for doing what you did, but then secondly, giving us such a show. And I know there was a cost because of that. Some of us, speedrunning can be challenging, to keep at a certain level and grinding it out. So I don't take it for granted. I don't think the community does either, because it was... Such a wonderful moment in time to see all of this happening the way it did, and then to see this race and then the world records getting changed back and forth. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today, but then also for putting in the time and dedicating yourself so much to this, because, well, as you mentioned, Darkwing, we're not getting any younger, and this was definitely a time period that took quite a bit of time to commit to. So thank you so much for that. Breakdown is going to stick around. We've got more coming up, but before I go, Darkwing Duck and Lack, thank you so much for doing this. Darkwing, if I know you're still doing speedruns this day, so if people want to find you on the internet, where can they go see you do some speedrunning to this day?
Well, it's my Twitch channel is twitch.tv/Darkwing_Duck_SDA, and that's where my schedule's a little bit light nowadays, but I'm an evening streamer on my end, so it's late on the East Coast, but that's when my streams are. So yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Thank you so much.
And I am doing some speed runs right now, so on a game I've run in the past. So nice.
Awesome. LackAttack, you stream pretty actively. Where can people find you and see you speedrunning and trying all sorts of different things?
Yeah, I speedrun at twitch.tv/LackAttack. I dropped the 24. This is weighing me down.
The 24 is gone.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I stream weeknights, weekends. I'm expecting, my wife and I are expecting child number 2 in August.
Congrats.
So yeah, thank you. So, stream time may or may not get lower. We'll see. It might be at weird times. But I like to stay active and speed run and do different challenges. So yeah, come hang out if you like.
I once tuned into your stream when you had child in arm on child number 1 playing a game. I'm like, okay, there's nothing Lack can't do. You can pair it and play a game at the same time. I'm impressed. Thanks everyone for listening, watching, viewing, liking, subscribing, and sharing. All of that stuff goes a long way to helping out the podcast. If you'd like any additional info, you can go to sequencebreakpodcast.com. All of our past episodes, everything's on there. You'll find everything there. If you'd like to watch live, follow the Sequence Break Twitter. That is Sequence Break PC, and you can join in, ask some questions, watch the whole thing live. It does happen. It's not really a set time, but I do post when I go live. Everything else, if you have any questions or anything like that, podcast@sequencebreakpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.